In June 1948, Stalin tried to win a city without firing a shot. He simply closed every road, railway and canal into it, and he waited for 2 million people to run out of food. It was the first time the Cold War might have turned hot, and it happened in Berlin. A quick reminder, at Yalta, Germany and its capital, Berlin, had been split into 4 zones: American, British, French and Soviet. But Berlin sat deep inside the Soviet zone, a divided city 100 miles behind the Soviet line. As long as the wartime allies cooperated, that was awkward, but it was workable. By 1948, they were not cooperating at all. Germany had become the place where the two systems were tested side by side, and they were pulling in opposite directions. In the Western zones, the Americans, British and French were rebuilding, pouring in martial aid, restoring industry, moving towards a democratic, capitalist German state. To make that easier, they merged their 3 zones into one economic unit. In the Soviet zone, Stalin was doing the reverse, stripping the region for reparations and building a communist regime. The final trigger came in June 1948, when the Western Allies introduced a brand new currency, the Deutschmark, across their zones, including their sectors of West Berlin. To them, it was simply foundation for economic recovery. To Stalin, it was provocation. The West was building a separate, prosperous, capitalist Germany without his agreement, and worse, they were doing it inside West Berlin, a gleaming capitalist island 100 miles inside his own territory. It embarrassed Stalin and it threatened him. He decided to squeeze it out. On the 24th of June 1948, Stalin cut off West Berlin from the world. Every road, every railway, every canal linking it to the western zones was closed. No fuel, no supplies would come in by land. Over 2 million West Berliners depended upon those supplies. Stalin's calculation was cold and clever. He was not firing a single shot, so the West could not call it an act of war. But without supplies, West Berlin would starve within weeks. The West would face a brutal choice: abandon the city or abandon their plans for a West German state. Either way, Stalin won, or so he thought. The West found a third option, and it was in the air. The land routes were blocked, but the air corridors into Berlin were still open, so the Allies decided to supply an entire city by plane. The Berlin Airlift lasted almost a year. Day and night, Allied aircraft, mainly American and British, flew in everything West Berlin needed: food, medicine, and above all, coal to get through the winter. At its peak, a plane was landing in West Berlin roughly every minute. In total, they flew in around 2 million tons of supplies. Stalin could have shot the planes down, but that would have meant firing the first shot and starting a war he did not want. So he let them fly. And after 11 months, having failed to break the city, in May 1949, he lifted the blockade. It was humiliating and a very public defeat for Stalin. The consequences were enormous. Germany was now split for good. Within months, the Western zones became the Federal Republic of Germany, or West Germany. The Soviet zone became the German Democratic Republic, or East Germany. 2 countries where there had once been one. And the crisis had shown the world that the two sides could confront each other fiercely, yet still pull back from the brink of actual war. So, who was to blame for the first great crisis of the Cold War? One interpretation was that it was Stalin. He was the one who blockaded the city, who tried to starve 2 million civilians into submission in order to seize territory. The West simply refused to be bullied and rescued the city through sheer effort. It was aggression met with courage. The other interpretation was that the West moved first. It was the Western Allies who broke the Potsdam Agreement by merging their zones, creating a new currency and building a new German state, all without Soviet consent. In this view, Stalin was reacting clumsily and brutally to a West that had already decided to divide Germany. He did not begin the process, he responded to it. Notice that both sides believed they were defending themselves. This is the pattern of the entire story. The blockade taught the West one overwhelming lesson. Alone, each country was exposed. If Stalin could threaten Berlin, he could threaten anywhere, and no single Western nation could face the Red Army by itself. So even before the blockade ended, they signed a treaty none of them would have imagined a decade earlier. A permanent alliance in which an attack on one would be an attack on all. In our next video, we'll explore NATO.